Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Bill Bansberg, and this is,
And my name's Alice Martinez Bansberg.
and we both work with the Migrant Parent Empowerment Consortium. And this session this afternoon is on beyond identification and recruitment, addressing migrant family needs. And so I'll just jump right in. If let me suggest this. Please go to the chat box, and if you have any questions, we'll answer all questions at the end. That way we'll make sure we can get through this and have time for questions. The other thing is there's a few handouts that I'll talk about in the PowerPoint. And if you put your email address in, I will send the PowerPoint as well as the handouts to everybody. So that's the best way to get a hold of this information. So if you'd be kind enough to do that, that would be great. Okay, our targets for this session, we want to cover a variety of things. The importance of the recruiter as part of the migrant education program team, how IDNR can assist with data collection and required reporting, identification of needs of migrant families, recruiting migrant families, incentives to participate, and then facilitating services and resources, how the recruiter can become involved in that, available for migrant families and parents. So that's our goals for today. That's what we're hoping to cover. And so as we go along, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. We'll make sure that we get to them at the end. All right, this is something I've talked about before, and you may have seen this, but the migrant education program really has three major parts when you look at it and you think about it. There's an identification and recruitment part, which is, where you go and go meet with the families, have a COE, and you see if the family's eligible, and you get them to sign up. There's a data reporting part, which is a big chunk of this program. The recruiter actually plays a role in that, but a lot of times that's handled by the local OEP director as well as the state director. And then there's the sole services part. Of course, the reason the program exists is for the services part. This program was started back in 64, 65 as a result of research being done and presented to Congress that showed that only about 20% of migrant kids were graduating from high school. And so therefore, the program was started with the support of farmers and ranchers to be able to help kids be successful in school. And so that's what the program's about. The program is migrant education. It's about providing services to migrant children. Of course, we have to identify them and qualify them first, and then of course, in order to make sure that, the program continues to receive funding, that's the reason we do all this data collection. And it is important because it's the kind that data collection does keep it so that Congress continues to re-up the program and keep the appropriations up. So all three parts are important. And what I would argue is that the recruiters are part in all of that. All of these things overlap. IDNR services, data reporting and requirements, they all overlap. They're not unique single kinds of things. Sometimes I get a feeling, I've been migrant a very long time, and sometimes I get an impression that people view recruiters as this separate part that are out there on their own, and their job is to just simply identify and recruit families, get them to sign the COE, and then that's it. They're done. They're not part of the team. And I would argue that the recruiter is a critical part of the team for a lot of reasons. But all of these things overlap. And we'll talk about a little bit about that as we go through this. All right, so the importance of the recruiter as part of a team. These are things that people are kind of aware of, but they don't often state them outright. The recruiter is often the only MEP staff that meets in person with the family. Now, some states have family liaisons. That's great. If you do, that's great. But a lot of smaller states, the recruiter is the one that meets with the family. The recruiter is considered by many migrant families in many, many states as their key contact with the school. They're the recruiters generally often the one that speaks the language of the family. They're the one that they know. They're the ones that that are gonna contact when they need help. They're gonna call you. They're gonna call the recruiter. Family would tell the recruiter their needs and the needs of their children, and they're open about it. You're the one that they know, so you're the one they contact. The recruiter has contact information for the family. Contact information regularly changes for migrant families, and if anybody's going to have updated information, it's going to be the recruiter. And the recruiter can pass along communications from the MEP program. The families often provide the recruiter with information valuable to the program, and I'll give examples of that as we go through. Uh, Families will often attend events and become involved with the program due to encouragement from the recruiter. The recruiter also can provide critical data regarding the changing status of the family and their children. It almost has to, so that the local program know when families are moving, know when there's been changes in the family, know when kids may join the family that weren't originally there, know when kids come of age. There's a lot of things that make the recruiter much more than simply just going out and getting families to fill out COEs and sign them. So they're a critical part of the team. What the recruiter can provide as part of the team. The recruiter can meet regularly with MEP staff, like as a team, local MEP director, and discuss and resolve ID and R eligibility issues. That's something that I think happens all the time. I think that's a regular thing. That's kind of something we expect to happen. But the recruiter can also assist in identification of needs with specific families and kids. And I'll talk about how in a second. The recruiter provides valuable information to assist in planning the MEP program. What services should be targeted? I mean, the families. You can talk about that. What access to technology is available to families? A lot of times, I mean, especially during COVID, it was critical that families were able to access virtual instruction, and so therefore there had to be some ways that families could do that. That's often highly dependent on whether families have access to Wi-Fi, whether they have tablets, whether they have computers. These are all things that the recruiter would know and would have the ability to find out. The recruiter also can assist with the collection of required data and information needed for the various reports and things that the migrant program has to provide. The CSPR, the Consolidated State Performance Report, the continuous improvement cycle, which is every state is required to do a comprehensive needs assessment and to do an evaluation of the migrant program, usually in a 2 to 3 year cycle. And this is all information that the recruiter can help with. I'll talk about how and why. As well as the state migrant data system that all the data for your migrant program goes into and then gets uploaded to M6. And so all of this actually requires, in many ways, help from the recruiters. Recruiters can also provide resources to families on the availability of resources and can facilitate family engagement in the migrant program. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the identification of needs. And this is something that I've been talking about for a few years now. When you go out to recruit a family, or when you go out to check on a COE and see if the family is still eligible each year, you bring the COE with you. You can also bring a copy of what I'm calling the Parent Advocate Family Log. This is information that the recruiter can collect on the family. In addition to finding out whether the family is eligible and filling out the COE, you don't have to be certified staff to simply ask family what their needs are. How many kids do they have? The kids have needs in reading? Do they have needs in math? Do they have needs in writing? You just check the box. Do they have needs to learn English? Other kinds of things that the family might mention. The blue shaded part of this form is set up so that it's set up and designed so that the recruiter brings this with them with the COE to meet with the family. Several of our member states in our consortium use this with every single family. And so what happens is you're collecting individual needs of individual families. And these can be brought back and shared with the local MEP director. And it provides a whole lot of information that can be used to design whatever kind of services the program's going to offer. And it's up to the blue shaded part can be filled out by the recruiter. And it does include another section where you ask the family, do you have access to the internet? Do you have access to a laptop or tablet or a smartphone? So we know what kind of technology they have. All this is really good information for the program. It also, and it does identify needs by family, not just in a general block, well, this is what we think the needs are, but we know by specific family exactly what the needs are. And so decisions can be made. And this is why I talk about the recruiter as part of the team. You bring this information to the team. The team consists of the local MEP director, whatever staff the program has, which could be teachers, could be parapros, could be liaisons. Whoever is in part of that team could just be the MEP director. In a lot of small districts and smaller migrant states, that's the whole program, the recruiter and the local MEP director. So it gives you a lot of information about what the needs of individual families are. And then you can decide what can we do to help these families. So it's a critical thing. Did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I wanted to reiterate what Bill is saying. I am just always so impressed with the role and the skills and the knowledge that the local recruiters have. One of the tasks that our company also has been asked to do in other states is to do the migrant family re-interviews. And when we go out to do the re-interviews, the local recruiter often accompanies us. And I fill up this parent advocate family log, and there's information that you get that unless you were there asking, it might not show up anywhere. And I'll just give a real simple example. In one particular family where there were multiple children in the family did have access to the computer and they did have access to the internet. However, because the high school student was involved in advanced courses, the younger children had no access to the computer because the older sibling kind of monopolized, understandably, but monopolized access to the computer. So we worked with the local recruiter and the local school to make sure that the younger children had smaller tablets that they could work from.
I should add that when we do re-interviews with states, I mean, that's not a typical part of the re-interview to ask about needs, but we always do.
Mhm.
So when we're checking for family eligibility, we will always ask the family about needs and then give that information back to the state. That's kind of where the idea for this family log started.
Mhm.
So it is something that we've been using now for about 3 or 4 years, and that the states that are using it have a lot of good response to it because it's a great way to collect and identify needs for families.
Well, then the families are very receptive and very open once you share the reasons for asking the questions.
Well, and I think Alice is making a really important point. When you go and you just talk to families about things that relate to qualifying for eligibility, that's one thing. But when you start asking the families, okay, what are your needs? What that says to that family is, okay, this is a program that's interested in helping me. And so it's the first step towards that. It's the first step because some families will wonder, well, why am I signing this?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? What am I going to get out of this? And so that's part of what we're talking about today. But this is one of the first steps. The next thing that I want to talk about is how the recruiter actually assists with data collection for the required reporting. As I said, you could use this parent advocate log and collect a lot of information, needs data, which actually in some of our states is collected and used in the comprehensive needs assessment. because it gives you a lot of information about the needs are by family. And so you really have some really accurate and targeted needs data for the CNA. You can provide families information and resources which facilitate reading and math instruction. That's one thing. Another thing the recruiters can do, which I'm going to talk about at the end here. The Migrant Literacy Net is a parent portal, and I want to lay that out so that anybody on here knows what that is, and we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But every student that receives reading and math instruction is reported on the Comprehensive State Performance Report. It's important. The reason I bring this up is because the way data is reported for migrant education is for every student, you need to report, did the migrant program, not Title I, not regular classroom, not Title III, did the migrant program provide reading instruction and math instruction to this particular migrant child? Well, one way you can do that is to use the Migrant Literacy Net. And that's all data that can get reported on the Comprehensive State Performance Report and get reported back to OME. And that shows that even if you have a very small program, doesn't have a lot of instructors or tutors or parapros, it's basically you and the recruiter and the local MAP director, you can still provide reading and math instruction to literally every child, every migrant child in your program, if you just get him signed up on the Migrant Literacy Net, because all of them can take screeners and tutorials on the Migrant Literacy Net, and that's supplemental instruction, supplemental reading instruction, supplemental math instruction. And so it's data that can help your state data system, your state, when they're reporting data to OME about what happens in the migrant program. Another thing that's critical is, as a recruiter, you are the ones that know when families leave, by and large. You know when they withdraw. That's something that needs to be reported back. All that information has to be added to your local state data system, has to be uploaded to M6. When families withdraw is critical. So that's information you have. You also have information that you can talk to the families about other things. Access to technology, we've already mentioned, but health needs, dental needs, vision needs, all of these needs to learn to speak English. All of these other things can assist in program planning. And this is information that families typically will share with the recruiter. Also, regular contact with the families is critical by the recruiter, because changes happen all the time. And you guys are aware of this. Families will move, there'll be changes in addresses, changes in phone numbers. That's real common. Changes in grade levels of kids, changes in age which affect eligibility. Sometimes you'll have kids joining the family after they've arrived. So there's all kinds of things that you, as the recruiter in contact with the family, become critical information when it comes to data for the migrant program. All right, so that's a lot of ways you can assist in data collection and reporting. All right, incentives to participate. As I said earlier, and I took this straight out of the guidance, the purpose of the migrant program is to assist states and assist local programs in supporting high quality, comprehensive education program and services. That's what the purpose is. And to help kids meet challenging academic standards, particularly in reading and math, as well as to help them overcome educational disruption, cultural language barriers, social isolation, etc. All of the entire migrant program is focused on services to children, and that's what it exists for. And so when you're talking to a family about why should they sign the COE, this is not new information, but this is the kind of thing that, when the family says, well, why should I sign this? They may not say it out loud, but it's one of those things that when you're asking them to, you need incentives for them to participate. What are the things the program can do? Well, It really depends on the local program or the state program as to what services you have. But one of the things you can do is help kids with preschool become ready for school if you have that kind of program. You can help, you can certainly help family to acclimate to the local school system. This is a significant um, uh, um, a need that we hear a lot of times from families is, we're not from here, we're not sure how the school system works and who to contact and how these things are supposed to happen. So one of the things that a recruiter can do that can help as an incentive is to talk to the family about, here's how the local school system works, and here's who you would contact, and you can always call me, and I can help you with these things. Um, Other things is you can other incentives for families to participate is they can help their own children to learn to read. And I'll talk about that in a minute. They can help their own children to learn to do math in partnership with the MEP program. They can help their own children to learn to speak English. This is in partnership with the MEP program also. Help them overcome barriers to graduation. That's one of the focuses of Migrant Ed. And help them overcome barriers to school success, like health issues, cultural barriers. So these are all incentives as to why families would want to participate. One of the handouts that we have put in here is a generic one that we borrowed from the state of Nevada. They came up with this. And we have it in English and Spanish, and it's one that I will send out to you if you're interested, but it's one you can hand out to families when you are working with having them complete a COE. Say, this is the kind of services we provide. So it explains the kind of things that migrant education can provide. And then these are Word documents, so you could actually put your own local recruiter contact information in here. And so we've got a space for that.
And that's another piece of information that we share with the families when we do the migrant family re-interviews. We always tell the families, the more families that we can identify and the more families that choose to participate in the program, that ensures that your state will receive additional funding to support your local school program, the local program in your area, to help provide more additional support and services so that your child can succeed academically.
And you may already have handouts like this that you use, but this is another one that you have the option to use if you choose. All right, and I want to shift to talking about, because to talking about actual resources available for migrant families and parents that you can actually the recruiter can have a direct involvement in. So let's take a look at that. What possible resources are available to migrant families from the program? Well, you've got, and it depends on the program. It depends on the local, whether it's a regional migrant program or it's a local migrant program, and how big the program is. I mean, some states have significant numbers of migrant families, and therefore they have many more resources and funds to be able to do a lot of things. A lot of states, most states, are what we would call small migrant states. They don't have huge programs. They don't have all kinds of staff. They have to figure out how to provide resources to families based on whatever funding that they have, based on the number of kids they have. So some things, some programs can offer summer and regular year academic programs. Depending, some states only offer summer programs. Some will offer just regular year programs. Some will offer both. Depends, to put on a summer program is expensive. It's one of those things that you have to have enough kids and enough funding to pull that off. A second kind of resources that can be provided to families are tablets and or laptops for distance education. Third kind of resource that can be offered to families is family literacy nights and family math nights. Of course, that requires the resources to be able to put that together, and mainly the staff. I mean, they don't have to be really expensive, but you've got to have staff to put those together and open it up to families and invite them in, and being able to, often you need translators. You may need childcare as part of those things. Services, another thing that can be provided to families are services provided by cooperating agencies. And these are typically, pro bono services provided by, health providers, vision, dental, et cetera. That is not so much as an expense as it is requires a lot of coordination, but these can be provided to families. Tutoring, if you can, afford to have tutors or hire tutors for kids. Another thing that is a resource for families that they should know about is these credit accrual programs like the PASS program. The PASS program is something that mostly for secondary migrant students, they can use to complete coursework that they're missing so that those gaps can be filled and they can graduate. And then the last thing, as far as a resource, is the Migrant Literacy Net parent portal and resources. And the reason I talk about it this way is almost everything else on the list it costs money and is something that you would have to have the resources to be able to provide. And if you can do all those things, that's great, or some of those things, that's wonderful. The Migrant Literacy Net is the one thing on the list that doesn't cost any money. And even if you have a very small program, you can let parents know about it and you can set them up so they can use it. So I do want to talk a little bit about that as a resource. And so I'm going to shift to that next, and just something so that even if you're a recruiter and you're not a certified person and you're kind of uncomfortable with moving from the recruitment place to talking about academics, that's okay. You may or may not feel comfortable with this, but it is something that that recruiters can show to parents, and it's something that if you work in partnership with the local MEP program, can be very, very helpful to parents. And it's an incentive for parents to participate in the program, even if you have a really, really small program where you really don't have much in the way of staff, where you're trying to figure out, well, what kind of resources can we provide to parents? What kind of things can make them, feel like they're getting something out of this program? That's why we developed this particular portal for the Migrant Literacy Net. Now, the Migrant Literacy Net is all supplemental resources. These are certainly not meant to replace.
Right. Right. Well, we'll get into it further, but all of the resources in reading and literacy and math are not scope and sequence. They were developed by highly qualified instructors, teachers who had personal and professional experience working with migrant families, special ed, special populations, native speakers, and summer migrant programs. So we'll talk more about that as we get further along. But these tutorials and these lessons are not scope and sequence. They were developed with the target population to focus on migrant students who may, by virtue of their mobility, have missed out on critical, foundational, basic skills in both reading and math. And so the intent was to address and target specific skills to help fill in those gaps.
I'd like to add all of the resources on the Migrant Literacy Net are based on, or were keyed into. First of all the reading resources were keyed into recommendations of the National Reading Panel, as well as Common Core standards, and the math resources were straight from recommendations by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, as well as Common Core standards. And everything is also mapped to the WIDA standards. That's the language acquisition standards. All of the materials are field tested, and everything is based in research and best practice. So, so you have a lot of good resources on here that can be used by teachers and parents. But I'm targeting the parent portal right now. This is a handout that we have set up for parents in both English and Spanish, which kind of explains the parent portal. if you put your email address in, I will send you a copy of this so that if you want to use it, you can give it to parents. Parents can sign in and create their own username and password for the system on the parent portal. The parent portal is set up so that you can access it in either English as a parent, so everything you see is all English, or in Spanish. And if you log in and you choose to log in Spanish, then everything you see will be in Spanish. And so that's the way the system is set up. So parents can create their own account. As I said, this works best if someone is helping them. It can be the recruiter. It could be you bring parents in for a family literacy night and you show them how to do this. But the recruiter can show them how it works. And what I would recommend, if you are a recruiter who has an interest here, create your own username and password for the system as a parent, and just go in and imagine as a parent, you're a parent, and just see what's there and try it out. It's not really very complicated. It's not that hard to see how it works. And so it's one of those things that I think it could be real valuable for you to kind of just try it out yourself. And then you kind of feel comfortable. You can show parents it's there. And if you talk to the other staff as part of the migrant program and they agree, you can put together ways that you can facilitate its use. So,
and also it's important to keep in mind, it does not, for parents of children whose native language is Spanish, it's not an either or it doesn't have to be an either or. I'm a retired bilingual special ed teacher from a dual language school in the Denver, Colorado area. And one of the biggest benefits was, and message that we wanted our parents to hear, is the value of maintaining and nurturing the native language. The old saying, el que es bilingüe vale por dos. That was kind of our philosophy. So there are some very strategic ways of using both instruction in native language, in Spanish, as well as in English. But that's for another day.
And I want to add something because this could be a question that somebody asks. When it comes to these resources, all of the resources on the Migrant Literacy Net are in English and Spanish. They're not in other languages. And I'm aware that there are migrant families that speak other languages. But I want you, it's important to understand why. About 85% of the migrant families in the United States are Spanish speakers. And so we had to make a choice. And what we did for all the materials on the Migrant Literacy Net, of which, like for tutorials, there's over 400 online tutorials in reading and math on the Migrant Literacy Net that parents can have access to. I'll show you that in a second. But all of those tutorials were developed in their native language. They were not just simply developed in English and then translated in Spanish. And that, to me, is the proper way to do it. You don't just run a translator, because when you're trying to provide instruction for kids, it has to be from the perspective of, it has to be written by someone who speaks the language and is trained in that particular skill, like reading, teaching reading or teaching math. So everything was developed from scratch. And so it's not just a translator. It's not just a translation. That doesn't really work very well when it comes to instruction. So I'm kind of digressing, but I wanted to make that point. So a parent has a choice. They can, since I didn't know who was going to be on here, I made this whole thing in English. And so if you are a parent who only speaks English or primarily English, you can create an account in English. If you are a parent down here who primarily speaks Spanish, you can create an account in Spanish. If you do, then everything you see will be in Spanish from at this point forward. So you just create your own username and password. If you clicked on create account in Spanish, it's not going to say username. It's going to say nombre de usuario and password to be contraseña. So everything will be in Spanish from that point forward. And so you create your own username and password.
And be sure.
Oh.
And be sure to indicate which state you are from.
Because the states are all there and they're in order. So if you forget that, everybody's going to be from Alabama. So just so you know. So parents can create their own username and password, and when they do, they log on, and this is what the parent home screen looks like. Now, as I said, if you logged on and if you created a username in Spanish, everything you see will be in Spanish. There are 4 options on the screen for the parent. They can learn to use the Migrant Literacy Net, and there's an informational video. Like I said, if you logged on in Spanish, the informational video will be in Spanish. All right, so that's the first button. So you can click on that and see what's there, and that'll explain how to use the system. The second button can actually help parents to help their own kids identify what their needs are in reading and math, and get tutorials automatically assigned that will help meet those children, the needs of those children in reading and math. And this is something that works best, we found, if it's done in partnership with MEP staff. If you show a parent this and you say, this is how you can do this, you can actually help your own kids. So they click on this button, and the first thing will appear is this a screen that looks like this. And you would say to the parent, okay, let's list the names of each of your kids that need help in reading and math. Might not be all of the kids, whoever does. And what it will do is it'll automatically create a success plan for that child. And it's something that you can see as a parent. And so, I did this, I put in 3 kids, Alicia Martinez, Chaco Martinez, and Danny Martinez. So I put in 3, part of the family. Maybe there's more kids in the family, but these were the only ones that needed help with reading and math. Okay. Then that individual plan comes up. The plan looks like this. And all the parent has to do is put in the child's grade level and then answer a few questions. And the system will take it from there. The parent does not have to be an expert on education. The parent just has to know their own child. And so, once again, if we logged on in English, everything you'd see would be in Spanish, everything you'd see would be in Spanish. But like the first question when it comes to reading needs, on this particular child, I have Alicia Martinez here on the individual success plan. That's one of the children, and the first question is, does this child need help identifying rhyming words, letter sounds, and letter names? In other words, is this child a very beginning reader? If the answer is yes, and I click yes, the system will automatically assign online screeners to identify that student's needs. What it does is the screeners of the child logs on, and the screeners have audio and graphics, and will lead the child through an assessment that will target exactly what their needs are in learning their letters and learning basic beginning reading. And it will automatically assign to that child a whole list of tutorials to help them learn those skills. And so that's how a parent, by simply answering a couple of questions, the system will take it from there and assign these screeners to kids.
The tutorials that are generated and assigned are directly linked to the items that particular child may have missed on the given screener.
Right. And so this is an example. If a child took a screener in phonemic awareness, which is beginning reading, which is what would be assigned, there were a whole lot of tutorials that get assigned to them. And the child can simply go on and there's a pre-test and a post-test for each tutorial, and the child can go ahead and take those. There's audio, there's graphics, everything's right there, so the child can go ahead and take it. And the parent can actually sit with the child while they're doing it. Everything has to be done online, but the system has been designed so that even if a family does not have a tablet, even if they don't have access to Wi-Fi, if they do have access to a smartphone and access to data, the child can take the screeners and the tutorials on the smartphone. And it works very well. It's been redesigned to work that way. So there's a pre-test and a post-test. And so parents get a lot of information about their children that they can share with their teachers. The teachers can even recommend certain tutorials to be taken. So it's a way of creating a partnership directly with the MEP program. Okay. So using this to identify needs and assign all these tutorials to kids can be very, very helpful. And the parent becomes a full partner in working with identifying, working with supporting these kids, learning and reading and math. The third button on the parent home screen is a whole lot of reading and math activities that that parents, what happened to you? That parents can use with their kids. These are just fun activities, and we have a lot of them in reading and in math, and they're basically kind of things that um, parents can use it, things that they have around the house to help teach all different kinds of reading and math skills. Here's a couple of examples here. Um, you want to?
Well, I think it's important to just remind everyone that the Migrant Literacy Net itself has been around for 25 plus years.
No,
The migrant,
the migrant
literacy, the
literacy has been
consortium.
15 years. The consortium has been
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, the consortium has been around for 25 plus years.
Yeah.
But my point is that we've been working for a significant number of years on reading and literacy, reading, writing, and literacy. Just within the last 3 years, we've shifted and have started to now add mathematics. And so there are fewer math tutorials than there are reading.
Math or math tutorials and activities for
Yes.
parents.
And so the math activities are, you can download them and hand them to the families. Everything that the family would need would be included in the handout. Or it may make reference to some very common household items for if they need them for manipulatives, or that they can find outside in their environment, like rocks and sticks and leaves and such. So they're pretty user-friendly, and it does provide, each one provides the family with the goal, the rationale, the directions, what they'll need, and then some guided instructions for how to conduct the activity.
But this is something you would show to parents and it's say, look, these are all things that you can use with your own kids. And this is something that if you did a family literacy night or a family math night, you could bring these activities and give them to parents and actually do some things with them right there.
Yeah,
with their own
you
kids.
can actually do these during a family literacy night or a family math night. And you can't see it on the example that's here, but at the very bottom of both, of every home activity, parent activity, there's a little reference that will say something to the effect, if you believe your child needs additional support in this specific skill, please assign your child, and it'll give them the name of the tutorial that they can now go back and assign their child to do for additional practice.
Okay, great. And then the last button on here, the last button on here is something that we put in for parents to improve their own reading and math and their own English language proficiency. This would have to be done in partnership with MEP staff, but it's something that many parents are interested in. And there's parents that sometimes are looking to get a GED. This is something that you can actually build with parents, and it's the same thing. You can go over it with parents. MEP staff, probably certified staff, would actually sit down with the parents and go over it with them, the kinds of things that they might need. And then as part of this plan, you can, screeners and tutorials can be assigned to parents, which will identify their own reading and math needs. So this is all part of resources that you can show to parents when, as part of the reason as to why they're signing that COE.
Again, another side note, when I go out and do the migrant family re-interviews, I will often end the interview by asking the parents, do you have any suggestions or recommendations for how we can improve, or your local program can improve services? And I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, do you know if the migrant program can provide English classes for us? For me, I would like to be able to learn how to improve or just learn English from the very beginning, so that I can be more helpful to my child, or to even be able to know what's coming home, the messages that are coming home from the school.
Another thing you'll hear is that, are you aware of any online things that can help my child
Mhm.
learn to read better or do math
Mhm.
better, and that are actually in Spanish.
Mhm.
So we can develop those skills in Spanish and then translate them to English. So
Mhm.
I wanted you to see that this is a resource that you can show to parents, that you can offer to parents, that is free,
Mhm.
and is not, and anybody can use it. So all right, so we covered a lot of things fairly quickly, and
You
so
do have a couple questions whenever you're ready.
yes.
Okay, so Mirna Aviles asked if the advocate log serves as the needs assessment.
I'm sorry if
Oh,
what
you cut out for a split second. Can you repeat the
Oh,
question?
okay. If the family advocate log serves as the needs assessment. So this question came in at the
it
beginning of
could,
your.
yes, it
Mhm.
could, yes. I mean, it's kind of a decision that, as you know, the state is required to do this comprehensive needs assessment, and local programs are expected to help with that. And in some states, we've actually used that form as part of the needs assessment, along with other things that you might have, staff surveys that ask the staff about needs and et cetera. But as far as collecting data from the parents, yes, you certainly could use it that way.
Mhm.
And we have.
Yes. Mhm.
We actually do, one of the things we actually do is for many states, we do the comprehensive needs assessment as well as evaluations. So we've used them ourselves, and it works well.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you. The other question she had is that if there are any other forms for supportive services.
You mean like examples?
Mirna, I don't know if you would like to come out of mute if you have more details on your question, but I think that question came in when you were showing that other form.
Well, I have a couple other forms that I could include. One is that form that we got from Nevada. Now, there's another form that explains how the migrant literacy net works. And then there's another form that can be used, can be put in enrollment packets for schools. When families come in to enroll, ask them a few questions about that would lead you to potentially identify target migrant families. So those are some forms we have, and I don't know if that's answering the question or not. But I'd be glad to supply any of those.
Okay, and another question that came in is where can they get the parent advocate family law form?
If they put their email address in, I will email it to you.
Okay, we did get a bunch of email addresses, so
Okay.
I will send you that, and they are
Good.
asking for the flyers and the forms. And please put in your questions in the chat, or get yourself out of mute if you have more questions. Those are all the questions I copied from the chat.
Okay, if there's any more questions, please ask. This is the contact information. If you put your username, not using, you put your email address in, I will send you this PowerPoint, and I will send you all the forms we talked about.
Yeah, and I'm sharing the PowerPoint because we did have it in our file.
Okay.
So I am putting the link to the PowerPoint
Okay, great.
right now. Yes. And
Now, I will ask one last thing if you have time. There is an evaluation for this, and if you can fill it out, we'd sure appreciate it. There's just enough time to do that. You can either do the QR code, which is listed there, or you can click on that link and just evaluate this particular workshop.
And just a reminder, because if you're like me, I often have more questions after the fact. please feel free. You have our contact information. We're just a text or a phone call away.
I only ask one thing. Please do not evaluate that we misspelled evaluation on this slide.
There is another question.
Yes,
Sherry asked if there's a list of all common core standards tied to the lessons.
yes, and you can find it on the Migrant Literacy Net. You click on it and it will link you to the, it'll link you lesson by lesson. As
Great,
well
thank
as the reader standards too, so you've got both. Yes. Any
Great.
other questions?
And I'll stop recording in case somebody wants to have a question off recording.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon and
Thank
enjoy the
you.
rest of the Institute.